It's funny. Sometimes a simple search can lead you down a real rabbit hole. And that's exactly what happens if you type Horton and Sri Lanka into a search bar. You don't just get one result, you get two. And these two places, they are worlds apart. So today, let's unravel this fascinating story.
So, on the one hand, you've got this super chic street right in the middle of the capital city. And on the other, a totally wild, windswept national park way up in the mountains. I mean, they couldn't be more different. So what gives? What's the connection? How on earth did these two polar opposites end up with the very same name? Well, that's the puzzle we're digging into today.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle the puzzle itself. Then we're going to take a trip to the city, to Horton Place. After that, we'll head for the hills, literally, to Horton Plains. And finally, we'll tie it all together and see what this one name really tells us about Sri Lanka.
All right, let's dive right into this puzzle. Now, the connection between a city street and a mountain plateau, well, it's no accident. It's not some random coincidence. It is a direct leftover, an artifact, of Sri Lanka's colonial history.
And, the contrast here is just wow. It's so stark. In one corner, you've got Horton Place. Think total urban sophistication in the capital, Colombo. And in the other corner, Horton Plains, the absolute symbol of raw, untamed Sri Lankan wilderness. We're talking two totally different worlds, somehow sharing the exact same name.
So who's the guy linking them together? Well, meet Sir Robert Wilmot Horton. He was the British governor of Ceylon, that's the old name for Sri Lanka, back in the 1830s. And, naming things after colonial administrators? That was pretty much standard operating procedure back then. It was a powerful way of stamping a new British identity onto a very old landscape, and yeah, a lot of the time, it wiped out centuries of local history.
And his time in charge was, well, it was complicated. You can see it right here. On one hand, Governor Horton did bring in some pretty big reforms, like setting up a legislative council and getting rid of a feudal labor system. But, and this is a big but, he also kicked off the very controversial practice of selling off the country's assets to foreign businesses. So right from the start, you can see that this name, Horton, comes with some serious historical baggage.
Okay, let's head to our first stop and see how this legacy actually looks and feels today. We're diving right into the heart of Colombo, to the very prim and proper world of Horton Place. So, Horton Place is in a neighborhood called Cinnamon Gardens, and that name is no joke. It's totally literal. This whole area used to be covered in super valuable cinnamon plantations. Of course, the plantations are long gone now, but the name still means prestige. It's the place to be, home to diplomats, the city's elite, and these incredible grand old colonial homes. I love this quote. It just perfectly nails the vibe of the place. For generations, this street has been a witness to the great wealth acquired by anglicized masses of old Ceylon, basically the local elites who really leaned into British culture. And you can still feel that history when you're there, on those wide, tree-lined streets. But hey, don't think it's just some museum piece. Horton Place today is absolutely buzzing. It's a real power corridor. You've got major embassies, Sri Lanka's biggest contemporary art gallery, amazing restaurants that have been there forever, and these super cool modern cafes. It is very much a living, breathing part of Colombo. And this really gets to the heart of the issue for Horton Place today, the battle over its future. You've got residents on one side, fighting tooth and nail to keep its historic character. They've even fought off attempts to rename the street. And then on the other side, you have these massive development plans trying to push it into the future, like a planned 75-story skyscraper that got stopped in its tracks. It's that classic tug-of-war, right? History versus progress. Okay, brace yourselves because we're about to do a complete 180. We are leaving the city far, far behind and heading way up into the central Highlands. Welcome to the wild, raw, elemental world of Horton Plains. The first thing you have to wrap your head around is just how high up we are. We're talking about an average of 2,300 meters. That's about 7,500 feet above sea level. And what does that mean? It means this is the coldest, windiest place in the entire country. We're talking frost on the ground in the morning cold. And the landscape up here, it's just stunning. It's this incredible mix of two totally different ecosystems. You have these huge open stretches of wet grassland, they call it patana, and then woven into that are these pockets of super rare montane cloud forest. And that's exactly what it sounds like, a forest that's pretty much always wrapped in mist. It's a one-of-a-kind natural mosaic.
But it's not just about the looks. Horton Plains is absolutely critical to the country. Why? Because it's the starting point, the headwaters, for three of Sri Lanka's biggest rivers. It's basically the nation's water tower. The health of this single place affects everything from farming to the drinking water for millions of people. No pressure, right?
And remember what we talked about with the colonial renaming? Well, before it was ever called Horton Plains, it had a much older and honestly a much more fitting name in Sinhala, Maha Eliathena. It literally just means the Great Open Plain. The name described the place, not some person from thousands of miles away.
This place is also a total sanctuary, a hotspot for biodiversity. We're talking about species you won't find anywhere else on the planet. You've got these big herds of sambar deer wandering around, the very elusive endemic Sri Lankan leopard, and unique birds like the yellow-eared bulbul. All of them depend on this one special high-altitude home to survive.
So if you go there as a visitor, the big thing to do is this famous 9-kilometer hike. It's kind of a race against the clock, or really a race against the mist. You have to get to this incredible viewpoint called World's End before 10 a.m. If you do, you're rewarded with this jaw-dropping view from a cliff that just plummets over a kilometer straight down. But if you're late, the mist rolls in and the world just disappears. It's gone. Along the way, you also get to see the really beautiful Baker's Falls.
Okay, so we've been to the city, we've been to the mountains, now let's bring these two completely different worlds back together and really figure out what the legacy of this one single name is all about. So at the end of the day, what we have is one name, Horton, that acts like a bridge between two polar opposites of the Sri Lankan experience. You've got the carefully planned, highly curated culture of the city on one side, and on the other, the totally raw, elemental power of the untamed wild.
And this quote really just says it all, doesn't it? To journey from the manicured avenues of cinnamon gardens to the windswept grasslands of Maha Eliathena is to travel between two poles of the Sri Lankan experience. That shared name, Horton, is the historical string that ties these two completely different realities together.
And that kind of leaves us with this one big thought. A name on a map. It seems so simple, right? But as we've just seen, it can be packed with layers of history, conflict, and identity. It's just a wild reminder that a single word can hold two completely different worlds inside it. And it really makes you think, how does a name, especially a name that was put there by someone else, actually shape the story of an entire nation?